pressure or stress when you were in the service?
Yes. There was always pressure, and the pressure was to make sure I could live up to the code of the Marine Corps, that I could not falter in the duties that were assigned to me. The stress that I felt was perhaps, am I good enough to complete the task? Growing up on the south side of Chicago was very educational. It was very acceptable and almost mandatory that most young men went into the military service after high school. I joined the Marines in 1955. I joined when I was in third year of high school and went to reserve meetings every Tuesday evening on the south side of Chicago. And then between junior and senior year, I spent the summer in California with the Marines, and immediately upon graduation, I went full-time on active duty with the Marine Corps.
When did you first realize that boot camp was different from civilian life?
From the moment I stepped off the airplane. And we were told what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and you did nothing without being asked for permission, and you were trained to respond without question. You were trained to respond instantly, and when given an order, you would respond to it quickly. I got through it because I had the resolve to serve the country. We had a 40% dropout rate. That meant that 40% of the men who enlisted never made it through boot camp. Boot camp is very difficult, it is very tough. It is meant to separate those who can survive, those who can watch each other's back, and it is strictly a matter of willpower. They were not going to break me. I just took it as a matter of, that's why I joined. I knew it was a tough organization, I knew what to expect, and I knew that I could survive in it. And I was thankful for the training. The day I graduated from boot camp was probably one of the best days of my life.
Why do you feel that way?
Because I knew I was trained by the best. I knew I could survive. It was a proud moment to graduate because we knew this was just the beginning. The alert that was in at that time was the Middle East. The Middle East, a lot of people don't realize, the Middle East was in confusion and disarray for hundreds, possibly thousands of years.
In the wake of the stunning Iraqi revolt, America intervenes in the explosive Mideast crisis. The United States Marines pour ashore in Lebanon, their mission to protect American lives and property and to bolster the rebel-threatened Beirut regime. Curious and sometimes cheering crowds gather in welcome, making this one of the strangest operations of its kind in the history of the Corps. Overhead, fighter bombers of the 6th Fleet provide combat-ready sky cover for the Leathernecks. The temperature is in the 90s, tough going for troops in full combat pack, and enterprising ice cream vendors seize a grand opportunity. But despite its strange aspect, this operation is a gamble for high stakes, and the initial 1,800-man force moves swiftly to secure the Beirut airport, its initial goal. Later, their number almost doubled by a second wave. The Marines moved into Lebanon's capital city, carefully avoiding conflict and clashes with rebel groups. By a dramatic show of strength, the United States took a major step to restore stability in strife-torn Lebanon, drawing a clear line to bar further aggression in the ominously smoldering Middle East.
And we were being prepared both for desert training, cold weather training, amphibious training, so that we could be sent any place in the world to combat whatever evil was necessary. Day-to-day responsibilities, up at 5 a.m., physical training, then would either be hand-to-hand combat training, field training, drilling, or ammunition training. I was singled out to go to biological weapons school, so I spent 2 weeks at a biological weapons school learning about mustard gas and things of that nature, and then I would relate that back to the people under my control. So each day was a little bit different, but it was all well programmed by the higher ups to prepare you for anything. So each day was slightly different. A lot of marching, a lot of running, a lot of physical training, a lot of instilling confidence in oneself, because you were trained to act alone or as a group. Then after that 4 weeks of advanced infantry training, you were assigned according to your MOS, which is your military occupational specialty. Some would go into the motor pool, some would go into tanks, some would go into the machine guns. I was put into the infantry, and I signed up for the infantry. When I joined the Marine Corps, I asked what was one of the toughest units they had, and they said, by far, it's the infantry. I said, that's what I wanted, was the infantry, because they were the ones that were most highly trained. I was promoted to a private first class shortly after going on active duty, and then within 1 year I was promoted to a corporal, which meant that I was now a non-commissioned officer, and I was qualified to lead men, and that's when I was placed as a squad leader, and I was in charge of 13 men. So it was my job to make sure that these 13 men were qualified in every aspect of their training, and when we'd be out in the field, I was responsible for their actions.
What was it like having the responsibility of 13 other individuals?
Very gratifying, because the ones that I would be in charge of are ones who would be either less time in the service or for some reason did not have the rank that I had. I had 2 men in my squad who were Korea veterans, but because of disciplinary actions, they were busted down to privates. So it was kind of interesting to be in charge of men who had been Korea veterans, who had actually been in combat. But that's the way the Marine Corps worked.
The focal point of the physical conditioning program is the building of endurance, in which they are tested on their ability to climb the rope, perform repetitions of strengthening exercises, and run 3 miles with their platoon. The physical training is difficult and demanding, as it is designed to be. For when the training is completed, the finished product is a strong, well-motivated, physically conditioned Marine.
Were you eager to put all this training, into practice?
Yes, that's an interesting question. It's like saying, do you look forward to going to war? War, in my mind, is a necessary evil, because there are times when conflicts occur that need to be put down. And who is going to put them down but those who are trained for it? I felt highly trained. I felt that I was ready to go any place that needed my services. I was 18 years old. Yes, I wanted to put my training into practice. Do I regret not ever having to go into a war zone? No, I do not. Was I ever prepared to go into a war zone? 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I was prepared to go into a war zone. When we were put on alert and we were told that we might be sent over to the Middle East, yes, we kind of looked forward to it because we felt this is where our training comes into effect. What were we going to expect? We had no idea. We were trained to jump out of helicopters. We were trained to rappel out of helicopters. We were trained so thoroughly in almost every aspect of warfare. I mean, we had mock villages as part of the training that you would go into to overtake and to come. When you would do these so-called war games, they would have enemies set up that you would have to overtake and overcome. So we were so highly trained to do whatever was necessary that yes, there is a certain aspect of one's life that says, I want to see how I can handle it under real conditions. And I was prepared for it. For instance, when you have a 65-pound pack on your back and 2 canteens of water strapped to your belt, and they say, we are going on a 20-mile hike, you have a certain amount of stress to say, I hope I don't falter, I hope I can make it. But it's that stress that keeps you going. It's the fear of the unknown that keeps you going. So yeah, I had stress and I had fear. But one of the reasons that they do that, and one of the reasons that, I won't say I look forward to it, but I learned to overcome it. And it made me very, very pleased to know that regardless of what they threw at me, or regardless of what conditions I had to live under, I could overcome it. I could survive by myself. I could survive with a group. I could survive under attack. So I did not have that experience. I was prepared for it. I do miss not having that experience, but I don't regret it. Because what a lot of people, and I might be going off course here, but what a lot of people don't realize when you are in the military is that you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. Because you might be in a tent out in the desert, you might be in your bunk in back at the barracks, and all of a sudden a call comes in, and within hours you are packed up and you are going to God knows where. And you don't know what to expect once you get there. So yes, it plays with your emotions. But really, once you're into the training, you have the camaraderie, and sometimes it may be hard to understand the camaraderie that exists with people who are in the military. Because when you are placed among people who your lives depend upon each other, your training depends upon each other, you develop such a bond that they become your closest friends. And you learn to get along with them, you learn to live with them. When you're off duty, you go out with each other, and it becomes like a second family.
Do you recall the day your service ended?
Yes. I recall it like it was yesterday. The day we came back from cold weather training, when I got off that truck, there was a Jeep waiting. A Marine from the office said, "Hey, Mac." And I said, "What's up?" He said, "You don't even have to clean your gear this time." I said, "What's going on?" He says, "You're being discharged." I said, "You gotta be kidding." He said, "No, you're being discharged. You got 2 days to turn in your gear, you're going home." Yeah, I'll never forget that. My tour was up. My initial feelings, it's like saying, how do you mix coffee with cream? I was stunned. I was a little bit upset that my tour was over, but I was happy that I survived and I knew I could take it. When I was being discharged, if they were to say, Ed, your unit is going over to Vietnam, I would have re-enlisted in a minute. I would have stayed in for the duration. I would have probably been a career Marine if there was a war going on at the time. I would never have said, this training is for nothing. No, I would have said, I am trained for this, I am prepared for this, I will re-enlist, and I will lead my group to go overseas. You know, no, I would have re-enlisted in a minute.
How is your viewpoint different from other people's because of that?
It's an interesting question, and I would respond to that by saying that I treat people with the utmost respect. I respect the privileges that we have. In my working career and in my married career, I am very disciplined. And I respect the opportunities that are given to me. I'm not going to say I'm an unusual person, but I'm a very disciplined person. And a lot of that discipline comes from the training and the upbringing. I grew up in a very difficult time following a world war. And I've seen a lot of things in my life that I hope a lot of people don't have to see. I've experienced a lot of things that I hope a lot of people don't have to experience. But I think through the Marine Corps and through the military, I became a very disciplined person. And I don't know if that answers your question, but I look at things not for only what they are, but what they could be. And that's what makes a Marine.
Ed's story has affected me in a good way. Throughout editing his doc, I found a new perspective of war, military, and life in general. He always had a good outlook on life and was very dedicated. Even though I was not able to meet Ed because of the COVID-19 outbreak, he has impacted me in more ways than I can explain. I want to thank Ed for everything he has done and will continue to do.
How did you get involved with the talks at schools?
We talk here at Harlem. We've talked 3 times over at Boylan, talking to some of the students about the history. And they asked me to participate and talk about patriotism, the flag, and things of that nature. Based on my background and for no other reason than being a Marine, they said, would you do this? So I would give instructions on how to float the flag, the meaning of the flag, and things of that nature.